Question is, how is abortion, pro-life, and pro-choice wrapped up into feminism? So that's one pack there.
I think for a lot of people, feminism, this wave of feminism has become synonymous with abortion. And so it's something where if you don't subscribe to abortion, then you don't belong in the feminist movement. And I think that that's where we're trying to create a space because we follow something called the consistent life ethic, which means we oppose all forms of violence for the duration of someone's life. So we're anti-war, we're anti-death penalty, anti-torture. We extend it into the womb when human beings are at their weakest and most vulnerable by also being anti-abortion. So for me, this is actually a very progressive belief. More human rights for more human beings. And when I talk to people about this, you know, the common response I get is like, all right, I disagree with that, but I see where you're coming from. And so from there, I try to take it to a common ground perspective of, you know, if you're pro-choice, cool, like legally you can have an abortion in this country, but let's talk about what these other choices are as well. And how can we support women who are facing unplanned pregnancies like I had when I was 16 years old, you know? What was the support and honestly the privilege I had to be able to choose life for my son, because so many women don't have that. And so by saying, oh, you know, abortion's pro-choice, for a lot of women it's not. It's the only choice. It's a necessary evil. And so I think that feminists have to come together and create space to have dialogue like this.
And I think personally, I very much agree. And I'm always kind of like, when folks say that they're pro-life, but then they don't give a shit about black people getting murdered in the streets, they don't care about black trans women having the life expectancy of 35 years old. I'm kind of like, where's this energy to be quote unquote pro-life, but the only life you care about is before, you know, exactly.
Yeah.
So I feel like it has to be a more holistic approach. And I think that when you see feminism that has this one axis that only talks about abortion, like having gone to school in Louisiana, I knew kids who knew what abortion was before they knew what a pap smear was. And you should be able to talk about all of sexual health, not just, you know, the most sensational elements of sexual health.
I mean, I have a lot of opinions about this because I am from Texas and I went to Catholic school. They would pass around the little fetuses, and yet I've always believed, like, you know,
They would pass around fetuses?
the baby at different months. These little plastic. You know, it was traumatizing. It was like at the different things. But 9 months in America, you're not, unless there's something wrong with you, you can't have an abortion at 9 months. This is not Asia. This is not one of those.
Have you not been paying attention to New York? What just happened?
Yes, you can. So this
And
is
in
the
Virginia.
There's also the Democrats voted against this Born Alive survivor. Basically, there was a bill that was proposed that would have criminalized not providing health care to a child that survives an abortion. And this is something that I felt like this is the logical conclusion of abortion is infanticide. When you decide to dehumanize a child and decide that its worth is based on its convenience in your life, and you have decided that once that child is born, and it survives a botched abortion, it's living and breathing, and it's not a criminal activity to deny it health care, take it to a hospital, that is hugely problem. I think that is reprehensible, and it is infanticide.
So from a medical context, when an abortion happens and they're, you know, like the fetus is otherwise viable, then you don't generally see just fetal tissue being discarded. It generally is like if the mother's life is in danger, if it's an ectopic pregnancy, but this is getting into like a lot of medical jargon, and I think that this particular bill was used to paint Democrats as baby killers, and that's a narrative we see a lot.
Margaret Sanger, she literally came up with Planned Parenthood to kill black people.
She's a eugenicist.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And what also confuses me about the women's movement, the feminist movement, is that we always be like, oh, the female is the future, but we killing them. What's gonna happen? What's gonna happen? I mean, I was raised up in a rough area. You was raised up with a single mom. What if your mom would have aborted you? You wouldn't be here to talk.
Right. I wouldn't be here to talk though either if I hadn't made it to higher education, if I hadn't made it to Columbia. And I'm pro-choice in every sense. I'm pro-choice in the sense that you should be able to choose your life path, that you should be able to go to college, that you should be able to have that dream job no matter where you're from. And if abortion is a part of that story, you know, if birth control is a part of that story, if sex education is a part of that story.
I don't have a problem
Right?
with birth
That's what I want to work in as we make this conversation go
I don't have
a
an
little bit
issue
further.
with birth control
I think we should be talking about birth control and sex education as well.
Abortion isn't birth control. Most people don't use abortion as birth control, but I think
And most people wouldn't have abortions if they had access to birth control.
We need to have OTC, not insurance, not going through, but we need OTC access to birth control and No, over the counter, $5 for everybody. Not just for birth control, but for Plan B, which it's worth mentioning, people confuse it with the abortion drug. There is a pill that you can take that will induce an abortion. Plan B does not do that. What it does is it prevents. Plan B prevents a pregnancy from happening. Essentially, what it does is it prevents a fertilized egg from implanting. So you never become pregnant in the first place. And if you're already pregnant, it does not harm the baby. And this is huge. This is a big one. We have to culturally change what it means to be a young, poor, or single mother. As long as you're shaming women for being single moms, for being young moms, as long as we're treating people poorly, as long as we're holding them back, if they're not able to go to school, they're not able to get a job, they're not able to do all of these things, you're giving them an incentive for abortion. When they get kicked out of church, they get kicked out of their homes. Like, that is the cause of most of what this is. I mean, a lot of the rest of it is just like someone who really wanted their baby finds out that they're being born without a brain or without a heart.
The feminist movement, unfortunately, is kind of pushing this narrative that you can't have your child and go to school. You can't have your child and, achieve this successful life. Like, my feminism's rooted in you can, and we're the sisterhood that's going to come around and support you.
As the daughter of a woman who went to college in the 70s, and I'm from rural Texas. This man, when I was home recently, he was like, I want you to vote for me. I'll protect your rights to go hunting and fishing without a license anytime and no background checks. And my mom is 65, and she said, what about my right to abortion? And he said, I back the Bible, and she started chanting, my body, my choice, my body, my choice. But even then, it was like they were both yelling at each other. There was no conversation, and at least now I like that there's conversation, but I do think it's my body, my choice, and that the government should not be regulating it, because we're going to go around it anyway. Coat hangers, like horrific thing.
Well, and that's the issue. It's supply and demand, right? So they're trying to cut off supply, but they're not addressing the demand side and why this is an issue. I think preventative care, I think sex education, like all of these things, every prevented potential pregnancy is a prevented potential abortion. So I am all for us actually addressing the demand side and freaking keep the Bible out of it. It's just basic science and biology at this point. Like, that's how we have the conversation.
So my next question.